The Huffington Post election misinformation is down by 73% after Twitter's bans of Trump and other QAnon conspiracies. Bill Maher explains why this is a problem. These stories and more on your Not So News update. From Huffington Post, we see a report that election misinformation plunges after Trump's Twitter ban. In the report, they say online misinformation about the presidential election plunged an astonishing 73% after Twitter and other social media networks either banned or suspended Donald Trump and key supporters, according to new data analysis. Baseless claims of election fraud dropped from 2.5 million mentions to 688,000 across several social media sites in the week after Trump was banned by Twitter, according to research by the San Francisco-based analytics firm Signal Labs, the Washington Post reported Sunday. They also report that hashtags linked to the January 6th Capitol attack also plunged. So Fight for Trump, Hold the Line, and March for Trump all fail, falling 95%. So what does this mean for the right-wing radicalism? Just move from mainstream channel. We've been looking at radicalism in the last couple of weeks and how it differs between the left and the right. The way left-wing left-wing radicalism happens is it's just in your face and mainstream media, on the news, and it just moves the Overton window to expand and include the new views. Left-wing radicalism it's just in your face. The theory and conspiracies, regardless of evidence or feasibility, just get included. So we were saying last week with attacks on Republicans, congressmen that were apparently, gave, the inside for all the protesters going on. We all know that that's just obviously false. So when we were looking at right-wing radicalism, how does that spread? What happens is the right gets suppressed. It gets strangled on these mainstream networks and they're forced to take off platform. This is why sites like Gab, Minds, Parler, and Locals took off after the Twitter ban. Is right-wing radicals wanted that content that they were getting. And because their, quote-unquote leaders were taken off, they needed to find somewhere new. So, looking at just the last couple of days, after the AWS took down Parler, what do you think the radicals did? Apparently, they're taking to the radio waves. In a story from CNN Business, we have blocked from social media, extremists discuss turning to radios to plan attacks, FCC warns. In the article, it says the Bureau has become aware of discussions on social media platforms suggesting that certain radio services regulated by the Commission may be an alternative to social media platforms or groups to communicate and coordinate future activities. The FCC said in its warning Sunday, individuals using radios in the amateur or personal radio services in this manner may be subject to severe penalties, including significant fines, seizures of offending equipment, and in some cases, criminal prosecution. The FCC licensed certain signals for people to broadcast over radio waves. Those messages are generally protected by the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment, but the FCC reminded radio licenses and operators that it is prohibited to transmit communications intended to facilitate a criminal act. People are also not allowed to encode their messages to obscure their meaning from law enforcement. This is exactly what I predicted was going to happen a week or two ago when I first started talking about radicalism. Is if you keep switching, who's allowed on the programs and not from the, popular websites like Twitter, they're just going to go into hiding and eventually just move to networks that you don't see them. The response of extremism is, often laughable. It literally resembles, a baby playing peekaboo. Twitter, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, they put a hand in front of your face and say, oh, the problem's not there anymore. All these radicals just magically go away. I'm confident that the drop in election misinformation is not down 73%. They've just changed the channels. They're not being silenced, they're just moving. They've adapted. And this is something the left needs to learn. These similar blatant double standards are being, also shown in responses to the BLM parodies. So BLM, Black Lives Matter, some of the more right-wing movements have started things like White Lives Matter. Here from lawofficer.com, we have a report, White Lives Matter banner considered racist by Northern California city. From ABC News, they report that disgusted by this despicable act of vandalism, this White Lives Matter banner in Union City is no longer on display at Smith and Dyer. The mayor also says that the city immediately took down the banner. Police now watching for hate-fueled crimes. Why? My question is like, why do they treat this so differently than BLM? What if the White Lives Matter was on someone's personal property? Would they have taken it down? Would they have done the same if it was a BLM banner in public square? Or would they have allowed it to stay? I think there's a really obvious test we can do for whether this type of behavior should be allowed. If you replace the like in this case the black or whatever race we're talking about with white and it becomes racist, then your movement is inherently racist. And I'm tired of this LARPing that's being done by BLM. They don't give a damn about black lives. They spent the last 9 months destroying cities, which overwhelmingly killing black lives, destroying black businesses, and preventing black individuals from just doing their job. They don't give a damn about black lives. Let's be honest, they don't give a damn about life in general. Finally, with all the, hypocrisy going on in, blatantly Square View, there's some comments that came out of Bill Maher this last week that I think is finally what I'm seeing as the first reasonable response to the Capitol riots. I finally found someone that's on the left that's attempting to steelman their opponent. And yes, he does it in a comedic manner and, is obviously appealing to his community. But, he's finally trying to see where the other side's coming from. So I want to conclude with some of his remarks.
And finally, new rule as bad as last week was. Worst school trip ever. Let's not confuse 5,000 people with 74 million. Yes, even supporting the insurrection in spirit is, well, deplorable. But there's a difference between holding illiberal beliefs and acting violently on them. At least that's what they always told me about Islamic terrorism. I keep wrestling on this show with the hard question of how do Americans, all of us, learn to share a country with assholes you can't stand? I've preached, and still do, that you can hate Trump, but not all the people who like him. And as counterintuitive as it may seem, you can like something run by assholes without being one yourself. Just ask Chick-fil-A. There's been so much liberal happy talk this week, jerking each other off about how, oh, this is the end of the Republicans now. Yeah, just like Watergate was the end of the Republicans, and Bush after Katrina was, and now it's Trump. Please, does anyone think that no matter who's running in 2024 on Election Day, it won't be extremely close? I'll bet anyone out there a quadrillion zillion dollars it will be. Because 74 million Trump voters are not self-deporting, and neither are we. One of the casualties in this attack on the Capitol this month was Ashley Babbitt. She was a Trump-loving small business owner. She had a pool cleaning company right down the road here in San Diego. She was an Air Force vet who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and she lost her life trying to prevent Biden from becoming president, even though she had voted for the Obama-Biden ticket not that long ago. But somehow, she came to believe that if Joe became president, horses full of Greeks would rape our women, and Georgia would go communist. She is the tragedy of the modern Republican voter personified. Pissed off at the greed and corruption that, yes, has squeezed the middle class hard, but always coming up with the wrong answer to who is doing most of this squeezing. She was in financial trouble because in order to keep her business afloat, she resorted to a short-term loan with an interest rate of 169%. That's right, she was being charged 169% interest and went to Washington so she could chant, "Stop the steal!" She died for a second Trump term, even though that would have solved exactly none of her problems. The same mistake made by all of her friends in the Waffle House Brigade. Guys, you were storming the wrong building. The feet up shouldn't have been on Pelosi's desk. They should have been on Trump's tanning bed. You thought Trump was going to be your bull in the china shop? Yeah, he was, but you were the china. So, should Ashley Babbitt have applied better logic in seeing that her real problem in life wasn't pedophile Democrats or Antifa, and that people like Elizabeth Warren were actually the ones who were at least trying to do something about predatory lending and economic exploitation? Yes, yes. But not everyone can watch MSNBC all day. She had other priorities, like fighting overseas. And maybe, since all politics is local, all she knew was that she lives in a state that seems to care more about her toxic whiteness than her toxic brokenness. And that the state that's run entirely by Democrats? Yeah, they didn't stop anyone from charging her 169% interest on a loan either. It shouldn't be that surprising that America is full of fed-up, unhappy people who just want to break shit. Trump sure didn't drain any swamps, but when it comes to graft and corruption and everybody wetting his beak, California, yeah, that's a swamp too. We can't put up a housing unit for the homeless for less than 500 grand, or build a rail line connecting the state for less than $200 million a mile, even though in France, with all their socialism, they did it for more like 15 million. California's a blue state that is completely held together by red tape. It's no wonder people are leaving in droves. I am in year 4 of trying to get my solar power hooked up. Just building this shed up to code took 3 years. We'll all be getting our power from dilithium crystals before my solar gets turned on. How about this? Will you hook it up if I let the homeless live in it?
I appreciate Bill Maher's remarks. And yes, he has to do it with comedy and hit his opponents a little bit. But he gets to the matter that's really affecting all of us here. Are we going to lump in the 74 million Trump supporters with the 5,000? Are we going to try to figure out why they did what they did? America is completely going insane, and it's time for us to just look at the other side and try to figure out where they're going. This is your January 18th Thoughts and News update. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video for more content like this. Have a good one.